Hi, Jersey City. This is Rolando Lavaro, Councilman-At-Large. I'm joined here today with Wardee Councilman James Solomon and Rafael Torres. Rafael is one of the prospective candidates who is interested and submitted his name for consideration for the Ward D Council appointment. Welcome, Rafael.
Thank you, Councilman. Good to see you. Safe.
Thanks. It's good to hear from you. And I just want to say it's glad to hear from you. Hoping everyone is well, that you're safe, and you and all your loved ones are healthy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. So we're gonna not waste much more time. Let me just say for everyone who's watching, there are about 6 to 7 candidates that we are interviewing. Rafael is the third of that batch. We sent a list of questions to all of the candidates in advance. We are going to have about 30 minutes for this presentation, this program. And after the questions that we provided in advance are asked, and there'll be 1 or 2 questions from myself and Councilman Solomon that are specific to you, Rafael, as a candidate, unique to you. Okay. So without further ado, we're going to get started and try to move this through expediently. And if you have any questions, and I should also add, there may be some follow-up questions to whatever question we may ask you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Solomon, you want to get us started?
Absolutely. So Rafael, I'll ask you 1 or 3 questions at the start. I'll go one by one, and thank you for being here. So just the first question is, why are you interested in the position?
I'm interested in the position because my past position as committee member has brought me to the heights, so to speak. It brought me just as far as I can go. So one of the things I did was I actually volunteered with Michael Jung, and God rest his soul. For anybody that's his family and friends, please, my condolences to you. But we're working with Michael for 1,200 volunteer hours. I was able to get a gist of not only enhancing my committee member work on the field, but also helping him in his work as a councilman. So that in itself made me realize that unless I get the councilmancy, this might be a position that I won't be able to do. I was very limited. So my work would reflect that. If you noted that I just tried to do more groundwork, grassroots work, and I was able to do that with Michael Jung as a volunteer. And it really appealed to me as a lifelong resident to do this.
And if I can just a quick follow-up on that, can you give the public a sense of what did that grassroots work with Councilman Jung entail?
Of course, grassroots. First of all, my background as a firefighter, 27 years retired, and as an inspector, I had a little bit of an eyes open view. I also had a different way of looking at things. Lately, I've been taking courses on engagement. So now I even have another tool that gives me a vision of how we should approach people very delicately, especially here in the Heights, how we should do our work now, especially under these conditions that have totally changed the priorities of politics. My background enhanced that, and that was something that I did not think of back in 2017 when I ran. So basically now the tools that I have and what I could do in the future has given me a better gist of what I could do, and given it with my experience versus people that had no experience. Just to note, people that have less experience in doing this now will not help the future of the Heights. I feel that this is the moment. This is what I need to do.
All right, thank you, Rafael. You sort of touched on this second question already, but it says, describe what education, training, or experience you have that is relevant and what makes you qualified to serve in the council. And specifically, do you have any training in public administration, urban planning, or municipal finance?
Yes, the latter of the question, yes, I have experience because I was always going to council meetings. I always had a I had a hobby of staying on top of honest politics. I having the experience has to look at it in a different way. And if you could give me a second, like I just mentioned, I took courses in engagement because I work at Liberty Science Center as a guest engagement, and that gave me a different, wider way of looking. In doing so, I realized that politics in itself had to be accomplished in a different way. Through these seminars, they always mention that there should be a person that asks questions and that try to always push the issues in order to get things done. Not as an activist per se, but as a person that needs to just get up and do it 24/7. That is my work background. My experience, of course, was concentrated in fire science, as a firefighter, as an inspector, as a fire official. These, unfortunately, were because of 93s and the laws in the 80s. I was grandfathered in my experience in school. And if I could just elaborate on that, the school seminars and the continuing education units that were required prior to 9/11 were pretty much based on license, and you just get a license and you just move along by taking seminars and getting upgraded. That's my experience. I didn't go into schools because prior to 9/11, schools didn't have fire science programs in this area. So I was very limited on education up towards and out of training school. But I was able to take the other side of my training, which is grassroots training. I got involved in church, got involved with all the things around us as an activist. I got involved with senior citizens. These are the things that that other candidates and other people don't have. I'm 61 years old, so I certainly have a lot of time committed to these moral, these things that were done that really could not get credit. I think this experience would be a breath of fresh air. Now that COVID-19 is here, this experience is worth a little bit more than a college course. So basically, I feel that my experience is in line to what is needed on the council dais.
Great, thank you, Rafael. And just last, very quickly, do you plan on running in the November election?
Yes, I do. Apparently, I ran last time. The issue was money, and I apologize to the community of Jersey City. It's hard to run against certain people that have millions of dollars. Grassroots was my only way. But yes, I do plan. I do plan on running if I can get a backing of my friends and some people that I've been supporting over the years. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Rafael. Rolando, you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted there. My apologies. So, Rafael, I've got the second question, and as we all know, Councilman Yun was known for his very probing, analytical questions, and his willingness to take on the politically powerful, including his own council colleagues at times. How specifically will you follow that example, and how would you approach the role of councilman differently than Councilman Yun did?
Thank you for that question, Councilman. Following that example it's not hard to do. Pretty much, I lived here for almost 35 years here in the Heights. I have a home that's almost 30 years, and I'm almost finished paying for it. Living up here, you have a little gist of how you have to act. Of course, the Heights, it's a little different than anywhere else. And what I mean by that is that we have 1 and 2 family homes, and we have senior citizens that are really, really into this city. We have citizens that are very proud, and we're a middle class citizen area. And I'm really proud that through the interim of my walks to the park, I was able to engage all the time. But Michael Youn, you're right. Michael Youn had something different. This is why I wanted to volunteer. I worked with him since before 2009 in a professional manner, because I was his photographer, especially his first festival that he did. If you remember, it was Everything's Jersey City in 2011, 2010. And I was able to work on the field with him to mingle with the community. But Jersey City always needed an independent. An independent person had to be the right recipe for the city government. And let me explain real quickly. And versus apprenticeship approach, a person that does not have the experience to know how Jersey City runs, how easy it is to change a law like a meter where you don't put a quarter in because the future says you should use a credit card. But you see that in itself is an example of how you can think here. You really have to step it down a little bit and look at the area from a bird's eye view. So basically what you need to do is have that grit that Michael Young had. You have to really get in there. I have to say Michael was much better with the numbers, and sometimes he relied on that numbers a little bit too much when sometimes you have to listen to the people around you. You have to actually do a lot of the work that has to be done. So basically, you're right. I don't believe this position should be given to an apprenticeship person, one that's not in tune in the community, could have a problem, and they'll learn the first week that this should be looked at differently. The leadership in the Heights in Ward D, which also has problems at the border, which I would say Fifth and Summit, where as a Hispanic person, I would like to approach those problems. Garbage, it has to be approached differently. Michael Young had the grit to approach it, but I'm sorry, this was not done as well as should have been done. Garbage removal is gonna be the easiest thing that I could do, and I could talk about that later. But I believe you're right. Michael Young's independence should be carried through like a tradition. It should be embraced. Excuse me. And it should be brought back into the future by getting a candidate that has that mentality.
Okay. Thank you, Rafael. So I just want to remind you, we have about maybe about 18 minutes left. We're trying to keep these all at 30 minutes. So what we're going to be a little more economical with the time going forward. I'm going to turn it back over to Councilman Solomon.
Thanks. So Rafael, what are the most difficult challenges facing the Heights?
The most challenges. Well, we all know that, and like I said, garbage is really was the priority before COVID-19. And I also said that it's not going to be a problem with me, garbage. But the difficult problem is, of course, parking. And the lack of no parking facilities like downtown. That's one. How do you do that when there's not enough high rises or buildings or even places to build? So I think that's a challenge. But the good thing is that the city has already worked in what I like to see and what I saw in abatements and anything like that, that money is being obtained through other ways, through funds, through budgeting in different ways. I have to also say the mayor has come up with some excellent ways of trying to get a little bit away from new construction. So the new construction around the city can benefit the Heights because the money could be placed into funds. The money could be placed into the Hispanic funds that are being created in construction. The funds could be reallocated, and it's already helping Jersey City. What I feel that Jersey City needs a little bit more of a direction in traffic problems in the Heights, in areas where safety is not being considered. Things like that could be looked at differently, and that's what I like to do. There's not much I could do in this short period, but I could actually look at things, like I said before, in a different way. So priority now has to be Board of Education, COVID, COVID-19 response to try to get these kids who are not in school. There's a lot going on that has changed my priorities since I ran the last time in 2017. There's a lot we need to do, and I believe we have to reinvest in Jersey City Heights in a different way.
Okay, what will be your top 3 legislative priorities?
Oh, my top 3 left. Well, like I said, garbage was always, parking was always the priority. But right now, I would have to say tax stabilization would be one, because of the Board of Education problems and what's going on where we're going to be taxed, and we're going to be probably going into the first time that we're going to pay more of a tax. And that's very important to the middle class. So priorities has changed. So I would stop talking about garbage for a second. Parking also, I like to start talking because we need property. We need to build some more parking spaces. But how do we support Board of Education? And education in itself, the trickle down would be the people. Okay. Affordable housing would be the other one. The affordable housing is very important. But a lot of what the mayor is doing and what the council has done in the past, like the 22% of new construction allocated for funding, these are the things that need to be moved along in the right way. We have to also make sure that the area moves forward by coming up with better ways from funding for the new construction downtown. Of course,
Rafael, if I could just
traffic
interrupt you for a
is the biggest
second.
problem, and that would be my last one. Traffic and safety, like I spoke about before. But what do we do with the cars now? Now that we're given permits, what are we doing with that money? These are the things that we have to look a little differently post COVID-19. But I really believe that in these sequences that I just mentioned, we need to reestablish our priorities.
Okay, thank you. We have questions coming up on all those things. I have one follow-up, but I'll save it, I think, for the end. So you next question, which you mentioned, is parking. So obviously we know COVID-19 is the biggest and most important priority. But just tell us a little bit about how you would specifically address parking issues in the Heights.
Yes, thank you. I'll give you a good example. In 2017, when I ran, I mentioned at a debate some of the problems that was happening at the western slopes, and during inclement weather when it snowed, you couldn't get down certain streets on the western slopes. So those certain streets, they're 2 ways. Traditionally, people liked it, and I also believe that by stating my stance on safety, I said I am going to make those one-way streets, only because compared to Hoboken in the early 80s, they didn't have stop signs, and that stopped once a family was hit by a car. When you go down these streets in the western slopes in the snow, there's just no way one person could go down that block safely. So I believe that Councilman Michael Youn stepped forward, and he made he came out with a few amendments, and he also came out with something that I really did think that will solve the problem. But he pulled it, and the amendments on the safety and the traffic pattern in Jersey City was ultimately changed, and we never knew why. I really believe that I have to take the safety approach by first fixing that problem, but only after talking to the community. I learned that it has to be a delegate approach on the western slopes, because these are really good people. They've been around for a long time. We do want to make sure that it's okay. We might have to change some directions so when they come out of their house, they're able to go down the direction that we now improved. So that's very important. And of course, some of those leadways going to Tunnelly Avenue are giving us a good opportunity now. There's a lot of construction going out over there. We can get a lot of leadway now if the leadership is there on getting new roads, getting new areas that will alleviate the Route 3 traffic and Route 3 routes that people are always taking in the morning and the afternoon.
Rafael, I appreciate the good answers. We're running a little short on time, so we got about 10 minutes left. So I just want to make sure we get through all the questions. So we'll be pretty quick on these last couple questions, but Councilman Lavarro has the next one.
Yeah, we have about 5 questions left in about 10 minutes. Okay, Rafael, just for your information.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got, what is your position on inclusionary zoning? And should there be any changes made to our rent control legislation?
My position is that I do support it. I don't, and this is how I work. I like to concentrate on one thing and not the other. I like to have the information in front of me. I can promise you that any of the provisions, anything that's coming out of City Hall, I like to have in front of me, and I hope to gain that respect by taking case by case. I was always for the zoning. Let's face it, there's just too many cars. There's just too many things going on here. The zoning in our areas have to be looked at again. So basically, I don't have too much on that. I really think that that's something that I would support. I like what's going on now. I think we can fix a few things, but I'm going to leave it at that as something that I would have to look at as a case to case.
How about rent control?
Rent control. But first, I like to, because of COVID-19, rent freeze. I like to support that. It's expanded. Councilman, thank you for your leadership on rent freeze. Rent control is very important. Of course, this is another thing that we need to support the committees that the mayor had put in order to look at these rent control problems. Rent controls are very hard because, like I said, there's not enough property up here, not enough new property. And some of these rent control laws are for new construction. So what do we do with new construction? Well, it's important to have the rent controls enhanced. But how do we do it in 1 or 2 family homes when they're old? And we have a different way of looking at it here in the Heights. I would definitely take all that into consideration for the Heights people, and that's what I would do.
All right, thank you, Rafael. So the next question moves us over to schools, and you mentioned they're a major priority. So the first is, what is your position on the upcoming referendum regarding the governance of the schools, mayoral control versus elected school board? And then the second question is, how would you address, if you were on the school board today, the issues around the school budget crisis?
Yes, very good. 2 good questions. On a budget crisis, yes, that would be very, very important to talk about. It's not something that we could take lightly. Okay, so budget will have to be made. The mayor has forced his issue. The issue is very important. COVID-19 has changed all that. We need to look at it. We need to see if and I know they approve. I believe they approved. In fact, if I can look at the numbers, they approved more than 600,000. 736 million. And we're talking about numbers that are pretty much beyond what we might be able to do in order to have a balanced budget. I also think that putting this information, because of COVID-19, in the mayor's hand, it could be a good thing, because I have confidence in the mayor and his leadership, and the lawyers that surround him are very good at taking care of these problems. I believe through the mayor's leadership, temporarily, can help the Board of Education come out of this problem. So voting in November, putting it in his hands, I think is very important. I would like to see a phase out, like the consent decree was done in order to help people getting hired in a fair way. I like to see, provisions be put in that will maybe put it back in the hands of the Board of Education. So I support the Board of Education and what they're doing now, but we had no time for the bickering that's going on and what I always saw in the past in the Board of Education. Every 4 years, it's a different problem. or every 2 years when they get voted in or out. I really think that the budget it's a delicate issue. It's not my strongest strength. Like I said, I would like to look at it, and I would give my best outlook of what needs to be done. I think the leadership in the past has been great, and if we can give the mayor a little bit of leeway just so we fix this problem, we should support what he could do to get them out of the hole.
Okay, next question, you touched on it, is COVID-19 and the coronavirus crisis. So what can the city do to help residents and small businesses survive and recover from the economic fallout from this COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, thank you. Rent freeze, of course, Solomon, Councilman Solomon, thank you for your work on that. COVID-19, there's a lot that has to be done. It's a short-term testing, as you know, and I always say, please listen to Governor Cuomo from New York. Testing. I don't know how we could get beyond that, but of course, that's a government, or that's a little bit above our heads. I want to bring it back to grassroots and the municipality. And that's why having rent freezes, things in that nature to help the people. Also, the people always come out, and I saw it in 9/11. This is time where people just step up. Look what's happening now. I have to first say the city's response was tremendous. It was great to see the city come in and do what they did. I was able to see firsthand that work, and it even inspired me to go by example by showing people that the work that the city is doing is important. So I was out there advocating just to get the young people to realize how important this is. COVID-19 has changed a lot, and it's going to change the future on how we're going to move forward. And that's my strongest strength. I really know how to look into stockpiling and things like that in the future. But what's going on now is that we need to support our first responders. And who's our first responders? It was firemen and police, but now we have, these people that work so hard and diligently to get our food to the table. And so how can we help them? That might be a case-to-case thing too, because I don't know how the retail people or how the private and public retail people are dealing with this crisis. We don't know what's going on. So how do we help the seniors? Let's look at that first. Testing every senior for COVID-19 was a good move by the mayor. How do we help services, cleaning up, keeping people safe? That's been said and it's been working. As far as the height is concerned, we just need to be more vigilant. We just need to stay the course, as the governor said. We need to stay home and stay out of the way. The approach and the cops' work is very important. The work by the fire department is so important that we need people to understand that it's our actions and through our actions that we depict the future of the Heights. We have a lot going on. I think we could talk about stockpiling later. We could talk about what individual people could do in order to prepare for this if it happens again. We need to come up with right now, how do we get these retailers, these stores, these restaurants to follow the law? And before that, we were already having problems with the bag issue and the plastic ban and the styrofoam laws that have come. These things are already having a hard dent on the community here in the Heights because a lot of these stores are small businesses.
So Rafael, I'll interrupt you.
Rafael,
Thank you.
we have one more question, Rafael. So this will be the last question, okay?
Yeah, last question. We got about a minute left in timing. And so the last question is just a budget-related question to COVID-19. We're obviously facing tough choices now. What are the things that we must prioritize in our budget, and where are areas in our budget that you might look to cut?
Okay, yes. Well, the mayor is always good at keeping the budget controlled, and taxes never went up for these years. in response to COVID-19, what we really need to do is to do what you're doing. Try to get more from the governor. The county probably has to step up also and try to reprioritize a lot of the funding that's already coming into Jersey City, and maybe they could grab it from that. I think future funding is a good thing that we could talk about, and that's another issue is anticipating that recreational marijuana will give us an opportunity to get a lot of money in order to pay for these extra things that are coming because of COVID-19. I really think that we do have that opportunity to do that, but that's a long-term action. If we can really work on that really fast, because it's almost there. And then I could talk about how I think recreational marijuana could help people get off of opioids, which is another problem we could talk about. But the health problems, what the people are now paying a little bit more from, may have to be reallocated through funding. And I think that's where we need to go.
Got it. All righty. Well, Rafael, thank you so much for taking the time, 30 minutes. Thank you for offering these very thoughtful answers. And we appreciate your sort of, interest in serving Jersey City.
Thank you, Rafael.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Is that so? Are you still on?
Yeah, we're here. We're still recording.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to the Facebook guys, I'm not able to see this, and I apologize. I wasn't able to get my Zoom application right. I apologize that I cannot see anyone. But here I am, and good luck, and whatever happens, thank you for this process.
Thank you, Rafael.
Thank you. All right. Be well.
Bye.